Divorce lawyers. What is the most insane, evil, funny, dumb way a spouse has tried to screw the other? I've been practicing family law for about 15 years, and I thought I'd seen every possible way a bitter spouse could try to destroy their ex during divorce proceedings. Fake domestic violence claims, hidden assets, parental alienation, you name it, I dealt with it. But this one case still stands out as the most unhinged thing I've ever witnessed in a courtroom. My client was a man named Robert Daniels, a soft-spoken accountant in his mid-40s who was going through his second divorce. His first wife, Maria, had died of ovarian cancer about 4 years earlier, leaving him to raise their 2 teenage kids as a single parent. It had been devastating for the whole family, and Robert had spent a couple years just focused on helping his children cope with losing their mother before he even thought about dating again. Eventually, Robert met a woman named Christine at some work function. She was charming, funny, and seemed to really connect with his kids. They got married about 2 years after Maria's death, and for a while things seemed to be going well. But Christine's personality started changing pretty dramatically once the honeymoon phase wore off. She became controlling, manipulative, and seemed to resent the time Robert spent with his children or doing anything that reminded him of his first marriage. The marriage fell apart within about 18 months, and Christine made it clear she was going to make the divorce as painful and expensive as possible. She hired this aggressive attorney named Patricia Foster, who had a reputation for taking scorched earth approaches to divorce cases. Christine was demanding half of everything, including assets that clearly predated their marriage, and was making wild claims about Robert's character and fitness as a parent. About 6 months into the divorce proceedings, Robert met a woman named Linda at his daughter's soccer game. She was another parent there, recently widowed herself, and they started talking about how hard it was to raise kids alone. They began spending time together, and it was obvious that Robert was happier than he'd been in years. Linda was kind, patient with his kids, and seemed to genuinely care about the whole family. Unfortunately, Linda started having some health problems that fall. She was experiencing fatigue and stomach issues that kept getting worse. After several months of tests and doctor visits, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was already pretty advanced, and the prognosis wasn't good. Robert was devastated. He'd already lost one person he loved to cancer, and now it was happening again. Somehow Christine found out about Linda's diagnosis, probably through mutual acquaintances or social media. Instead of showing any kind of human decency about the situation, Christine saw it as an opportunity to attack Robert in the most twisted way imaginable. Christine developed this elaborate conspiracy theory that Robert was somehow intentionally giving cancer to the women in his life. She claimed that he had deliberately caused Maria's death, was now doing the same thing to Linda, and had probably tried to give her cancer as well during their brief marriage. She never explained how exactly someone would go about giving another person cancer, but she was absolutely convinced that Robert was some kind of serial killer who used cancer as his weapon. Patricia Foster was actually a competent attorney, and when Christine brought this theory to her, Patricia flat out refused to present it as part of their case. She told Christine it was completely insane and would destroy any credibility they had with the judge. But Christine was obsessed with the idea and kept insisting that Patricia bring it up in court. During one of our hearings, Patricia stood up and made this very unusual request. She told Judge Harrison that her client wished to address the court directly about a matter that she, as counsel, could not in good conscience present as part of their argument. Judge Harrison looked confused but allowed it, probably thinking Christine wanted to make some kind of personal statement about the divorce. Christine stood up and launched into this completely unhinged 20-minute monologue about how Robert was a cancer-causing murderer. She explained her theory about how he had killed Maria, was killing Linda, and had probably tried to kill her too. She talked about suspicious symptoms she'd had during their marriage and how she was certain Robert had been trying to poison her or expose her to carcinogens. The courtroom was completely silent except for Christine's voice getting progressively more shrill and frantic. Patricia Foster was staring at the floor looking like she wanted to disappear. Judge Harrison's expression went from confusion to concern to barely concealed irritation. I was sitting there trying to process what I was hearing, while also making notes about this absolutely insane testimony. When Christine finally finished a rant, Judge Harrison very calmly told her to sit down and resumed normal proceedings. We never spoke about her cancer theory again, and the divorce was finalized a few months later with Robert getting a pretty favorable settlement. Linda passed away about 8 months later, and Robert spoke beautifully at her funeral about how much joy she brought to his family during a difficult time. Retry.